And here we are again. The apple scratter has been dragged out, washed down, and we've got a load of chopped up scrattered apple there. You don't really need to see this working because I've got loads of videos on this. And of course we use that teram there to wrap this apple pulp to put in the press, which is just round the corner. And there's some apple juice dripping out of this parcel, and when I'm done with the other one in the scratter, I'll put another bunch of slats there on top, and the other parcel or cheese or whatever you want to call it, and then I'm going to start pressing. And there we go. I need to change that jug in a minute. So I realised when I was editing this bit of video that you couldn't see what was going on when I was offering the piston up. And as you can see, it's quite tricky to fill, but effectively what we're doing is offering the piston up and then compressing the rings with our thumbnails. And there is a taper on the bottom of the piston which helps with that, and as you can see, that just went together. So here we go. Industrial agriculture is all around us at the moment with the cereal harvest, but I'm just picking the second crop of raspberries. We had one crop earlier in the year and now we've got more. There we go. And it's great. They're supposed to be autumn fruiting, but they do have 2 goes at it, and you can probably hear in the background increasing noise. I think they're harvesting the field beans in the field next door. It's basically with a combine with different bits of kit inside. This is not easy doing this and filming at the same time, but there you go. Autumn fruit, yeah, the season of autumn fruitfulness. And we'll stop now before the background noise gets too much. So I had a problem with the solar boom, which is the one with 6 panels that tracks the sun, similar to an old-fashioned post mill. It was still generating, but not very well, and I noticed that it was stuck at one end of its tracking cycle. So I thought, right, something's packed up and it's going to take a bit of investigation. So I dragged it round, because it's just a wheel on a series of concrete blocks. So I dragged it round to the midpoint and left it there, thinking, right, I'll get round to that. Anyway, next time, the next day or whenever it was, I was walking past and it had gone back to the start. So that sort of told me that actually the motor is working and power's getting there. So I thought, right, okay, what is the next thing that could affect this? And of course, it's on a timer. Just there. So that timer, that mains plugged in timer, which is actually off the inverter. That tells the control when to turn the signal around, so it tracks forward all day on a mark space ratio, and I can't for life of me remember, but I think it's something like 2 minutes every half an hour, and then that time switch tells it to go right, go backwards now, and that's probably about 9 o'clock at night or something, and it tracks back all night, and then when it gets to the end it just stops there until it gets a return signal, yeah, from this time switch, which effectively all it does is it changes the polarity of the power going to the permanent magnet DC motor. So I thought that maybe that's packed up. So let's just zoom out a bit, and that grey box there, grey, silver, blue box, whatever colour it is, that's got the controllers in it. Now we've got two timers because we used to have the big solar gate working off this, and that is the reversing relay. Now let's just see. You hear that click? So that relay's operating. So I was putting the time switch onto manual override because it's not quite time for it to start on its forward cycle. So therefore we have, that says boom there, so that's the solar boom controller, and there's a nest of wires and capacitors, and there's a rectifier there and all sorts of things in, but this is an override switch, so I can switch that on and switch this on to get it to put permanent power to the motor. Anyway, I'm not going to do that because I've already fixed it, yeah, and I'll just go back to the motor assembly now and we'll have a look. Right, I'll see you at the solar boom. So this is the back of the solar boom, and there's the pivot, and we come down, and there we go, and there's the drive wheel. And this, I must say, I can't remember when I made this, but I could check out the video and put a link, but it's a long time ago, and it's had very slight modification, and that there chain must have been running 10 years probably. We'll find out when I go and have a look at the old video, because that'll tell me a date, won't it? Anyway, it just goes to prove that when you get something running, you really should finish it off, because there's a circuit board there, yeah, and the only reason I've got that circuit board is because of those diodes there. So I'm using those diodes as blocking diodes, and you do that so that when you've got a micro switch either end of this, the travel, so it goes to one end, it switches off, and it goes to the other end, it switches off. Well, it goes to one end and the polarity reverses, so that micro switch at that end, you need to be able to switch it off, so that, you know, it's telling the motor to switch off, so you need to isolate it, and you can isolate it by having a diode in line, so when the polarity changes, that diode stops any power going through. Yeah, so therefore then the motor can go backwards. I might have to draw that at some point, but there's plenty of YouTube videos showing that. Yeah, and maybe I'll draw it if I can remember. Yeah, it's a long time since I've done this. Anyway, basically, yeah, it was a duff joint, and it just goes to show that, you know, you build stuff and it works and you just take it for granted and you never actually completely finish it. And this is one of those jobs where it's not finished 10 years later. But there you go, we're back on schedule and it's working again. But because I could switch the control on so we had permanent power coming up here, it didn't take long just to isolate the fault and sort it out. And job's a good one. So we'll crack on with something else. But it's a beautiful morning. Absolutely gorgeous. Cold, yeah, but not a breath of breeze. If you see there, well, there is slightly, but you know, the turbine is still, and there's a bit of light cloud, but we shall have a good solar day. So it's important for this tracking to work. I mean, it's not so important in the winter, but you know, if I don't fix it now, then come the spring I will have plumb forgot all about it. So anyway, it's fixed. I shall put this back together. It will just keep trundling backwards and forwards, and I will probably put some oil on that chain whilst I'm here, and check the oil in the gearbox there. And as you can see, I had to put a filler hole bunged up with a wooden plug. And that circuit board, I think maybe I'll just put a cable tie and just hold it in place. That would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Right, let's crack on. And here's a beech tree. It's about 16 inches in diameter, and looking down, there we go, there's the beech seed cases. Now, whether or not I can see some beech seeds or not, I'm not sure. Let's just zoom out a bit. There's that stick. Yeah, there's one. And because they've got hollow sides, they're not viable. But I mean, beech seeds, they get a mast year every sort of, I don't know, 6 or 8 years, where they're all viable. Most of the time in other years they're not, and this is obviously one of those years where it's not. Let's just go and look at stuff in more detail. Okay, as I say, you see that they're hollow sided rather than plump, and if you break them open, there's nothing inside at all. They're a bit tough, but you see there's no seed. Anyway, little bit of information. And there's the seed cases or pods or whatever you want to call them. Beech nuts. So it's getting on to October, the middle of October. The Michaelmas daisies are out. Nice splash of colour there. We still have a few raspberries on these canes, just the odd few, which is and there's a few that's not ripened up yet. Can we see them? It's a very good question. There's that post. Yeah, still ready for ripening, and there's a few, as I say, ripening up. And then coming round just behind this Michaelmas daisy, through there we've got leeks, and we've also got some kale in there which is doing quite well. But as you can see, things are sort of dying back now. And the beans, they're well and truly finished. There are some big beans or bean pods still on there, which we will collect for just dried beans. And the squashes or pumpkins, let me see if I can see anything. Where are we? There's that wigwam down here. They were growing on this deer fence in here, and they're just starting to show the signs of colder weather. Bit of mildew growing on them and stuff like that. So it'll be time to have a clear out in the veg plot. But these flowers are wonderful, aren't they? Anyway, I did the solar workshop and the woodlands workshop for Brighton, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. It was the Saturday was quite challenging because I've never taught in a monsoon before, standing in the woods, but people were up for it. Loads of questions flying around, even despite the fact that it was pretty wet and everybody was soaked at the end of the 3 hours. But I'm proud of them all for sticking with it, and everybody turning up, which is just spot on. But as those people have been on my courses before know, the courses are a two-way process. It's all about discussion as much as possible. Anyway, I'm just going to go and have a look at a solar panel now, because there's a little bit that I need to show you. So some of you may recognise this panel from an earlier video where I was trying to find out where the fault was on several panels, and I ground away some of the backing. I'll put a link to the video there because you'll probably find it quite interesting. And most of the crayon, the wax crayon, where I'd written what the outputs of the various bits were, has virtually disappeared. I think that was 7.9, and then underneath this it was 8.9, and then over this side it was something ridiculous like 1.6. That's short circuit current. Anyway, I have somebody who wants a 12-volt panel, and I'm just going to have to tell you about this, remind you about this. Okay, so we have a load of wafers connected down there and back up there. So we have a connection from there to here, down, back, and a connection is shown in there, and then down and back, and a connection is shown in there, and then down and back, and the end one, as you can see here, comes to there. So I'll show you what I've done, because this is okay and that's okay, but that's duff. So we've opened up the box, and I'm going to just move the camera, I think. So we'll just zoom into this. Now this is quite a good quality box, because you can put a screwdriver in there, and with a bit of luck you can just lift that cover off. So as you can see, that is the connection to the end here, and then when these wafers come back, that string there, it goes to there, etc, etc. So what I've done, and I'll just see if I'm zoomed in enough. No, I think we need to go in a bit more. There we go. So I've removed that there, which goes right to the end, yeah, and then put a tie across from there to there. So effectively we've got 4 rows or 2 strings of panels, and it's connected directly across there rather than going through the diodes. I could have just undone that and just left the diodes, but you know, each diode is 0.6 of a volt, so it drops a bit of voltage. So what I've done is put a piece of buzz bar, which is the nickel buzz bar for 18650 when you're batteries, when you're spot welding them or soldering them together. I've used a piece of that to link across there, so this goes up here across that link and then through the middle section of the panel and then out and then through the next section of the panel. So there you go. So we've just been able to reduce some internal resistance, so hopefully we will get sort of 7 amps or something out of this at a nominal, I don't know, but it'd be great for 12 volts. It'll be something like, well, the open circuit voltage of this panel is 37, so if you divide that by 3, that's about 12, so multiply that by 2, so it's about 24 volts across those two, which will be fine for charging a 12 volt battery. So I just thought I'd show you this. It's just a bit of fiddling, really. I mean, some of these boxes you can't actually take the back off very easily, and then you'll find the whole lot's encapsulated, but just in this one it's just made my life easier. Right you are. Oh right, yeah, so whilst we're here, let me just put this back on. There's a wiggle there. There we go. So let's just go and have a natter somewhere. So as I said, the Woodlands course down in Brighton, I mean, it was great and we covered a lot of material, and it was a sort of, not really a stream of consciousness, but it was following everybody's interest. So people weren't just turning up on a course and thinking it's not covering what I want it to cover. And then the solar one, beautiful morning, great, and then everybody turned up about 1 o'clock and we were able to show all the business with the effects of shade by having an amp meter in circuit, and then we started talking about wiring stuff up and charge controllers, and then of course it poured with rain for a while, so we just had to work our way around that, but it was great. I think everybody, thank you everybody for turning up. Yeah, I think there was 14 people on that course, and it seemed like everybody was really getting something from it. And Francis, my assistant, who did a marvellous job of just making sure I knew where I was and picking out bits where I'd forgotten, because we had a lesson plan. And when you're talking, when you're running a course where people are following their interests, you've got a basic idea of what the course is going to do, but you are available for questions and try very much not to go off on a tangent, and you just go, oh, we're not doing that bit because like this, this and this, or it's even worse if you go this, this and this, because then you go off on a further tangent. So it's just so anyway, she kept me mostly in line, and a good time was had by all. Anyway, so now it's October, everything's easing back, the solar's easing back. I've just done some maintenance on the batteries. I've made sure the backup charger is working fine, and I've got it on a time clock, so that then when we've got a good solar day and the grid is working well, grid tied panels is working well, it's also feeding the charger to go back into the batteries, which works well. It just helps top up, even though we have something ridiculous like, actually I've never counted them, but there's about 24 240 240 watt panels feeding the batteries. This time of the year, as the light levels are going down and the sun levels going down and day length, etc., etc., then you need every bit that you can get. So all the firewood's done. As you've seen, the veg plot is easing off. The tomatoes are just coming to their end in the glass house, but the winter lettuce is growing away nicely, and I've got some more which are about this big in pots that will hopefully overwinter. So I'm going to leave it there. I think this is a suitable point where it just shows that there's not so much happening this time of the year. And of course, if I get into some interesting projects, I will be doing further videos, and there are a couple in the can that just need a bit more editing and maybe a few more clips and just shuffling about. I mean, that electric bike video, I thought I'd edited all that lot, and then when I got to it, and I thought, no, I haven't. I've just done some of it. And then you go back and go, actually, we need a bit more footage here. So, and luckily, when you're doing a project with stuff that you've still got, then you can go back and re-engineer bits. So, and again, you know, come, I don't know, late December, maybe January, when we get a few nice days, I shall be cutting firewood again. So hope you've enjoyed this sort of weird rambling collection of bits that spread over maybe a couple of months, and I will catch up with you soon. Beyond that, just comment please. Love your comments, yeah, views, etc., points of view, just criticisms and concerns. I will speak to you soon. Cheers for now.